So I've got the job description here for SmackDown color commentator, and I'll be damned, don't beat women. Well, I can't beat anyone, so I guess I'm perfect for the job. It's Saturday, June 18th, 2016.
This is not a test.
This is the Wrestling News Experience. After Dark. I am Stephen Randle. 2-week break that I totally wasn't expecting to do. I did not forget about any of you. Happy to talk to you all here. Welcome to everybody who's in the live chat. All those people who are actually still left after I have disappeared without warning, which I am occasionally want to do. Of course, if you happen to be listening live and want to participate, we do have a live chat. Otherwise, you can join us on Facebook, on the Facebook group at TWNE After Dark. You can always get this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, ForumMania.com, through Facebook, and through the Wrestling to the Max podcast network. So yeah, just one of those things. You get older, you don't throw off stuff like sickness as quickly as you used to, apparently. You have a kid, so you're sick all the time. This is the things you guys have to look forward to, those of you without children who plan to have one day. I'm just telling you, you have a kid, if that kid gets sick, you're going to get sick. You'd better be freaking Wolverine. And even then, he still needs time, right? He doesn't regenerate automatically. I guess it depends who's writing him. Anyway, what are we going to talk about? So much has happened. So much stuff. But I guess we should start with what's happening this Sunday, which is the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. That's what you're here to listen to me. You want to know what I think of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And at this point, what I think of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is at least the Money in the Bank match will probably be unpredictable. There are actually, counting the two new matches they've added to the pre-show, there are 10 matches on this card. And you know what that tells me? About 6 of them are going to last less than 10 minutes. We are going to get to the top of, we're going to get to an hour and a half of the pay-per-view, and we're going to be done 6 matches. Maybe 7. Not including pre-show. So there's 8 on the regular show. So we're going to be through like 6 of them by quarter to 10. I'm willing to guarantee that. And it's not even like we have a women's match to go 20 minutes because it's a tag match. It doesn't even mean anything. That one may get 5 minutes. I wouldn't ask Titus O'Neil to go longer than 5. Sheamus and Apollo Crews should be fun. There will be a bunch of fine matches. There'll be a bunch of good matches. We got AJ Styles versus John Cena the first time ever. We got a Money in the Bank match which will go at least 20 minutes. We got Seth Rollins with Roman Reigns, which will go an amount of time. Be fine. But other than those 3 matches, nothing else is going to get any time. And to be fair, 3 matches that could be 4 stars or better is usually enough to be a good pay-per-view. But it seems odd that they decided that this pay-per-view just was not full enough, and they had to bump the 2 matches that were already on the pre-show and put them on the regular show and add 2 more meaningless matches onto the pre-show. It just confuses me why they thought they needed, because the 2 matches on the pre-show, in case you have not heard, because it's not like they've been really announced or anything, are the Lucha Dragons versus the Dudley Boys, and the Golden Truth versus Breezango, which is the worst name ever. With anybody, at least the Golden Truth versus Breeze and Fandango has a reason to happen, sort of. But why the hell are the Lucha Dragons fighting the Dudley Boys in a match that does not mean absolutely anything at all? On the other hand, I believe we have 8 tag teams. even if most of them are garbage. But we do have 8. And on the third hand, why the hell did we just bump Dolph Ziggler versus Baron Corbin onto the regular show? Because who the hell is still invested in a Baron Corbin match versus Dolph Ziggler? Why does this feud continue? Why is it getting a pay-per-view match? When it was on the pre-show, I was okay, because I'm not going to watch the pre-show anyway, so whatever. Have it there. But now they bumped it onto the regular show. I'm sitting there going, I've seen this match 7 times. I'm not going to count. I'm guessing 7. Since WrestleMania. And WrestleMania was only in April. And it's only midway through June. I should not have seen that match as many times as I've seen it. So, why does this continue? At least the Apollo Crews vs. Sheamus match is something new, and I would have been disappointed had it been on the pre-show, and I'm okay with it going on the main show, and it won't get a lot of time. But I'm okay with it being on the main show because it's been on Raw. We haven't heard from Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler basically since Ziggler kicked him in the crotch at this point, right? And Corbin has won this feud like 3 times at this point. I don't see what's left for them to do. Other than we're killing time because we have nothing. We brought up Baron Corbin with nothing else to do, which is actually kind of heartbreaking when you look at after the takeover, after the end, they played a new episode of Breaking Ground where Corbin was like, he and Apollo Crews and Enzo and Cass had finally earned their way on the main roster. They got the big moment at the end of the episode where they all get, hey, we're going to the main roster. And there's nothing for them to do. Except, well, Enzo and Cass. But Corbin has done nothing. He has wrestled one guy for 2 months. And it's just out of hand at this point. And Crews, well, at least he's got a feud with Sheamus, but other than that, like, I still think Crews should have beaten Jericho and been in Money in the Bank. If they really wanted to make a star out of Apollo Crews, that's what they would have done. But they didn't. But so Baron Corbin needs to win that match. Apollo Crews should win that match, but you never know because Sheamus is one of those guys who wins matches he shouldn't. And we've given them just about enough time for those 2 matches. So let's move on to the next one. Rusev versus Titus O'Neil. Like I said, we're not giving Titus O'Neil 5 minutes. Because as charismatic of a guy as he is, as good as he is talking on commentary, as good as an ambassador as he for WWE, he is shite as a wrestler. He's good in a tag team where he can sit on the apron and be the hot tag and do his flurry of moves and then the match is over. But we're going to put him in there to die as a singles wrestler. And Rusev is good, but I'm not sure Rusev is at that level where he can carry people, especially ones who aren't very good. On the bright side, at least Rusev's going to get a dominating victory, so we can continue to rebuild him after the mess that he has been in for the last year and a half. And hopefully we do this with the medium amount of jingoism possible. I guess the real problem is, and we're going to diverge a little, the real problem is that none of this matters because the brand split is coming in 2 weeks. Or 2 weeks? 3 weeks. By June 9th or July 19th, we'll have a brand split, and none of this will have mattered. And we know it's coming. So these minor matches, these Crews Sheamus matches, these Corbin Ziggler matches don't matter because everything's getting shaken up in 3 weeks, and they may not even be on the same brand by then. I do agree from the chat. Crews and Corbin probably should have stayed in NXT, especially Crews, because he couldn't. Right now, the main event of NXT is Finn, who should be on the main roster, Joe and Nakamura and Austin Aries, I guess. And Crews would have fit nicely in there and had something to do, and he has nothing to do on the main roster. But yes, Enzo and Cass had nothing else to do in NXT if they weren't going to win the titles. And with American Alpha, it was clear that Enzo and Cass weren't going to win the tag titles. So they needed to be on Raw. But there's a lot of NXT superstars who need to be on Raw, and maybe they will in the near future because there are rumors, which we'll get to. What's next? We'll do the Fatal 4-Way. this actually shouldn't be a bad match. I don't know how much time it gets, but I mean, it's Enzo and Cass, and Anderson and Gallows, and the New Day, and the Vaudevillains. I don't know why I had a blank spot there. And the one thing I can say is at least the Usos aren't there, and have the Usos fallen off the face of the earth again, and would we care if they had? But this should be a good match. All four teams are competent. All four teams are good. I don't think the way to give Enzo and Cass the tag titles is to have them happen in a fatal four-way mess at a minor pay-per-view. I think the club should win the titles. But I think if the club were going to win the titles, it wouldn't be in a fatal. Again, I don't think it would be in a fatal four-way. I think the club should have come in and won the tag titles when they debuted, and not got sidetracked by a dumb feud with the Usos. I think the club should win, but they've been really talking up the fact that the New Day are going to break that record. The record, I say in quotes because the real record's Demolition at like a year and a half. But the record for the WWE Tag Team Championships of 300 and some odd days, that they have less than a month to do it in. I think it'll be a case of they'll break that record and then lose the titles to the club. But yeah, that should be a good match. I do expect the New Day to come out victorious. And then the club will get them in a one-on-one rematch at Battleground and win the titles there. But yeah, like I said, like this pay-per-view will have good matches. That's for damn sure. It's just the question of course, is will any of it matter? What's next? The women's tag team match, which doesn't matter and is stupid and is probably just a way to get Becky Lynch and Natalya to win a token match and make Charlotte look even more vulnerable. And I don't know what the hell they're doing. Even in absentia, Ric Flair is still dominating this division. I mean, it's been just under a year since the Divas Revolution started, and what have they really accomplished besides getting rid of the name Divas? Sasha Banks gets to have the match of the year at WrestleMania and has disappeared. One of the best wrestlers they have, Bayley, is still in NXT. Becky Lynch isn't being used for anything. Natalya has had a 3-month feud with the champion because of longevity, is the only reason I can come up with. And Dana Brooke is a top contender for the women's champion at this point. And nothing against Dana Brooke's character. But when you've got much better wrestlers that people want to see, yeah. If the chat says, call me when Sasha shows up, because this is the epitome of pointless. And it's still not like the Sasha Banks thing isn't going to happen till SummerSlam the earliest, so we've still got another pay-per-view to go through. Where, like, why is Natalya still the number one contender, basically? Why isn't Becky Lynch getting another shot? Or how about Paige, who won on Monday? And when Paige won on Monday, I'm like, why the hell is Paige not wrestling Charlotte? That will probably be the next month, by the way. But it seemed like they had just they've already moved on from Money in the Bank with terms of the women's division. They're setting up feuds for after that. But they'd already booked this tag team match, so it's going to happen anyway. And it's going to happen in the semi-main. And it's going to be fine. But it's not going to advance any storylines, and it's not going to do anything smart. It's just going to happen, and it may get less time than women's matches have been getting recently, and that depresses me. Like, they literally had the best match of WrestleMania, and this is almost like they're being punished for that at this point, because the only person who came out of that WrestleMania match getting any sort of push was Charlotte, who gets to live in the shadow of her father, and Sasha disappeared, and Becky Lynch is a loser. And Natalya is the one getting the title shots. The whole thing confuses the hell out of me, and at this point, you need something else to happen. because they've lost me. It's not just enough to have. It's just not just enough to have the good wrestling. There has to be some good writing going on. You just can't throw them all together and say, "Look, we gave you the good wrestling women." You still have to pay attention to the division. Yeah, this is the worst idea. Not the worst idea, but yeah, either Paige will get the shot at Battleground, or we'll see these four again at Battleground in a fatal four-way, which would explain the dissension between Charlotte and Dana Brooke. Dissension makes absolutely no sense because they already established the week before that Dana Brooke is Charlotte for life, or at least till Emma gets back. Oh God, they will. They're gonna do it, aren't they? They're gonna do a fatal four-way, and it's gonna sit there. I'm gonna sit there, and I'm gonna want to kill myself when they announce it. That's do something else. Interesting fact, by the way, Charlotte is undefeated on pay-per-view since she's debuted. So there's that, I guess. Yeah. Let me just count through my head. What was it? Remember, I said it. Yes. So I will give. When this happens, we have to give Taryn credit because he in the chat said that's what's going to happen. So when that happens, we'll have to give him credit. Sorry, I'm counting in my head. Hey, we're down to the 3 matches that matter. John Cena will face AJ Styles in a match where John Cena basically, some reason, goaded AJ Styles into signing a contract where it would be guaranteed one-on-one without the crew's involvement. Here's the problem. Okay? AJ Styles is going to win this match, by the way, and it's probably going to involve interference, and it may involve Finn Balor, who's technically not a member of the crew. The problem is that now that AJ Styles has... my real problem is there was no reason to do a heel turn right off. But at the same time, this match is one-on-one for respect and AJ Styles to try and prove he's better than John Cena. So if AJ Styles loses, and he already will have tension with the club because he's signed to keep them out of the match, if he loses this first match, well, there's no reason to go forward. AJ Styles is not the better guy. There's no reason to get a rematch. Not that they won't come up with one, but that's the thing. AJ Styles win the first match, one-on-one against John Cena, well, then I guess he's the better guy, and everything John Cena is going to come back with is going to involve... I don't know. What's your reasoning when John Cena loses? He comes back and makes fun of AJ's manhood for no particular reason, just to get a rematch. It's literally a no-win situation for AJ at this point. I mean, we'll get a fantastic match, and that'll be great, but in the end... this really feels like the Kevin Owens situation all over again, where AJ wins the first match and then gets buried for the next 2. And not buried, but it still doesn't mean anything if AJ and this giant faction of guys who's supposed to come in and be intimidating get dumpstered by Cena. And winning the first one doesn't mean as much if you lose the next 2 convincingly. This has to be one where AJ Styles wins the feud. I'm sorry. If anything, the last 6 months should have shown the WWE that John Cena is not as young as he used to be. He's going to need time off. He's going to get hurt. He's going to break down. And yeah, he may come back 3 months ahead of schedule. But he's not going to come... there's going to be not necessarily an injury he doesn't come back from, but they are going to pile up. And you need to have somebody like your AJ Styles, who's also not that young, who's the same age as Cena. Why not? If AJ Styles is the same age as John Cena, what are they waiting for on putting him over? The only good thing about the brand split is if they do 2 world titles, AJ Styles may actually win a world title in WWE because on the other side we have Roman Reigns with a vice grip around it. So I can't see Styles winning that one. My point is that AJ Styles has to win this first match and then win another match. Maybe John Cena doesn't get to win every single feud and completely destroy his opponent after letting them get 1 win right off the bat. Because it's not just the fact that John Cena wins the next 2 matches, it's that he spends, after he loses the first match, he spends the rest of the time trying to prove that the guy who beat him is shit. and it comes back to jokes, and it comes back to not taking things seriously, and just generally running down your opponent to a way that you sit there and go, well, what was the point? Yeah, he got a fluke win, and then Cena came back and showed who the real man is. But the problem is that Cena shouldn't be the man anymore. It should be someone else. And yeah, I guess Roman Reigns has been trying that, but Raw dropped below 3 million on Monday. Should not have drank all of that. I think AJ wins the first match. Whether they have the balls to have him beat John Cena one-on-one, straight up, clean in the middle of the ring, I don't know, but we do remember that he lost to Chris Jericho cleanly at WrestleMania, right? And then lost twice cleanly to Roman Reigns. It would not shock me to see AJ Styles lose this first match and then resort to some sort of chicanery to get a rematch, which he might lose that too. I don't know. I don't know who's running this show at this point. But hey, be a great match. And yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to a best of three. And yes, AJ winning the first match, Cena winning at Battleground, and AJ winning at SummerSlam, maybe for a world title, would be smart. But that doesn't mean that's what they'll do. They might decide that John Cena needs to win the first SmackDown World title because that will legitimize it in the eyes of the fans. Or whichever brand they end up on, because they're going to end up on the same brand together. It's like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They will be on the same brand because otherwise they would just have to end up on the same brand. Somehow. Which brings us to, we might as well get to it. We'll do the Money in the Bank last. We'll get to the World Heavyweight Championship match, which Roman Reigns will obviously win. And that's kind of the problem. Just like the AJ Styles matches, this match with Seth Rollins is sitting there going, wow, this will be a fantastic match that Roman Reigns will win. And the worst thing you can be in wrestling is inevitable. Because people don't tune in to say, well, this is obviously going to happen, and we might as well just sit back and wait for it. Nobody's going to tune in to watch that. Least of all on a night where the Game 7 of the NBA Finals is on, and Game 9 of Episode 9 of Game of Thrones, which is the big one for the season, which I'm going to have to watch after Money in the Bank, so nobody spoil it, or I'll kill you. Legitimately. On a night where WWE will have serious television competition, you cannot put on a show where you can look at it and say, well, Roman Reigns is going to win that. Because Seth Rollins isn't going to win. And yeah, it will likely be clean. And the only reason I say that is because I do not see Dean Ambrose winning Money in the Bank and cashing in. Because I don't see Dean Ambrose winning Money in the Bank. Yeah, it'll be clean. Because that's how you make Roman look strong. Same reason why he beat AJ Styles relatively clean both times. Yeah, there were shenanigans, but the final finish, both times, clean. Rollins will hit Reigns with a bunch of stuff, and there will be chicanery, and I don't know who's going. If anyone, I don't think will run in because I don't know that there's anybody who could. But in the end, Reigns will pop up and hit a spear and win the match. That's a bad look. Because the whole booking has been crazy. People want to cheer Seth Rollins. They even made a documentary that makes people want to cheer Seth Rollins and decided at the last second, clearly, that he's still going to be the heel. Which just shows that they have not figured out what the hell they're doing with Roman Reigns, and he's still got to be the babyface. And after that one brief shining moment where we thought they got it, where the idea is that Roman Reigns just has to be Roman Reigns and not care about what the fans say, that was cool. They've just decided, no, he's still Roman Reigns and he's going to be the cool guy who's also the good guy, no matter what he says. And everyone else around him is going to have to turn heel to make him look like the ultimate number one best guy babyface. At this point, they would turn Sami Zayn heel just to make Roman Reigns look like a bigger face. And of course, it would not work. Yes, this match would be better if Reigns was the heel and Rollins was the face, but they've decided that Reigns is the babyface, and this is still continues to baffle me. Wouldn't it be best for business if you just turned Reigns heel? This is not the just turn Cena heel thing, which doesn't make any sense. This is a guy who should be a heel because he is this generation's version of Big Daddy Cool Diesel. He's a guy who should be a heel who you're making be a smiling babyface, which is completely not his role, and you're going to tank business because of it. And after your 11 months, you're going to say, to hell with it, and you're going to take the title off him and put it on somebody else, and we're never going to hear from Reigns again in any serious context. Because you decided he had to be a babyface. And yeah, Rollins is going to wrestle like a face because his entire heel run he wrestled like a face. He did high spot moves. He had hope spots because he was supposed to be the guy who was getting dominated and won at the last second. And the difference is Reigns is going to hit him with a spear and pin him. At which point I will switch to Game of Thrones and stop caring. I mean, other than the reasonable amount I have to care for my job. And yeah, this is a Rock situation. If the people start to like him as a heel, that's fantastic. You can turn him babyface slowly and eventually, and maybe within months. But you have him turn heel and be a bad guy for a while. And you'd be shocked how much better his character would be. Because everything about Roman Reigns screams, I'm not a good guy. Other than some family commercials he did with his daughter. And I don't get this thing where we've decided, like, you can have a number one heel carry the company. They've done it before. The NWA and WCW survived for a long time with Ric Flair on top because the whole idea was you built up baby faces to face him. You can carry the business with a heel. WWE doesn't usually do that. That's why you had the Hogan eras and the Cena eras and the Austin Rock eras where baby faces often carried the title. And heels were just not transitional champions, but held the belts for a very short time before a babyface would come and take it from them, and that was the WWE style. But it is very possible to run an organization where a heel carries the belt for a long time. Look at the 2 years where, well, don't look at the 2 years where Triple H dominated Raw, but because they were horrible. But it can be done. Your number one guy can still be a bad guy. You just have to build up number one faces to take the belt from him eventually. And in the meantime, you build up a bunch of number two faces who will come close and not succeed. That's the business. That's how it would work. You could get another year out of Roman Reigns as champion if you just keep building up plucky faces to come and face him, who he then squashes like bugs on pay-per-view. And given that you may be expanding to 20 pay-per-views a year, that's not the worst plan in the world. Although if they do that, I've told work, I'm going to need an assistant to help me watch all the wrestling. Because if they go to 2 brand pay-per-views on the months where they're on a Big 4 pay-per-view, in addition to SmackDown being live, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I honest to God am. Yes, from the chat, I would contend that Bayley could outsell Reigns in merch at this point. Now, I'd be a little surprised if she actually is, just because, for all we love NXT, it is still a smaller footprint, and WWE's stuff gets out there. If Bayley came up to the main roster and they started selling the hugger shirts and the wristbands and the headbands, Bayley would outsell Roman Reigns a month from now. I have no doubt. I would totally agree. Which is one of those things why I sit there and go, well, why the hell have they not brought her up? And fortunately, this brand split may mean that's what's going to happen. It's well deserved, and it's what should happen. And yeah, I contend that she would sell so much merchandise. She sells to kids, she sells to adults, she sells to females and males. Why would you not have that on your show? And the answer, of course, is that they're trying to treat NXT like an actual brand. But yeah, Bailey, without exaggeration, will be a merchandise goldmine for WWE. Assuming they spend like 6 seconds making sure she has something interesting to do when she's on the roster. But you could sell so much for her, and it's not even funny. So hopefully, by the time the brand split comes around, we will see Bailey on the main roster. Which I guess, no, we still got to do Money in the Bank match, and then we'll get into that. We'll get into the brand split. But the Money in the Bank match, my pick is anybody but Alberto Del Rio. But seriously, it's Kevin Owens. Sami Zayn doesn't need the briefcase because at this point, having the briefcase is a heel thing. Cesaro could use the briefcase, but they're not going to give it to him. Jericho doesn't need the briefcase. Del Rio damn well better not get the briefcase. And I just don't think Dean Ambrose is in a place where he can have it and be treated as they built him up for that Triple H match before WrestleMania, but he has crashed the hell back down to comedy character again. For me, it's got to be Owens. You got to have the ultimate shit disturber, the ultimate heel holding the one thing, the ultimate advantage, and he's going to sit there and take any opportunity to maybe use it, or at least cause shit while he's holding it and say, by the way, I got this thing. Anytime I want, I can be world champion. Doesn't that just seem like a Kevin Owens thing? Where he's got this briefcase. And he knows, because nearly everyone does, if he wins it in Canada at Survivor Series, and I happen to be at Survivor Series, that would be the thing. I would love to go to Survivor Series in Toronto. And if I knew Kevin Owens was going to win the title in Canada at Survivor Series, I would be there so fast. It did not occur to me that would be an opportunity that would come up, and he would get the huge pop, which is probably not the best idea. He's supposed to be a heel, but that would be the ideal scenario. But yeah, Kevin Owens is in the Seth Rollins mold. He's a guy who, if you should give him a briefcase so he can be really annoying about the fact that he has a briefcase. Because if anyone would be super arrogant about the fact that, hey, I'm going to be world champion in the next year, it would be Kevin Owens. He is literally the best heel in wrestling right now. And I will hear arguments for somebody else, but I have so many for why he is. And I think he's going to be the one. I really do. I mean, second choice is Dean Ambrose because they'll do that Shield triple threat at some point, but I don't think it's as good of a decision. The only reason they give it to Dean Ambrose is if they've decided we don't want that briefcase hanging over our head with the brand split going on. Which is possible. They may just do it, get it out of the way that night, have him cash in somehow and make it a triple threat. And just say, we're not dealing with Money in the Bank while there's a brand split going on. I think that's a bad idea, but that's what they could do. And that brings us, as I said, Money in the Bank should be a good show, at least. If you don't happen to be a huge basketball fan and you can DVR Game of Thrones, I recommend you watch it for good wrestling. But yeah, that brings us to, as I said, the brand split is coming. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't know. July 19th, SmackDown goes live. So that gives us 1, 2, 4 Raws, 4 episodes of Raw. Or 5 episodes of Raw, but the last Raw will not be the draft, I'm sure. Month, give or take, of preparing for this brand split. And the current rumor is there are at least 6 NXT names that are going to come up. There's also rumors that they've talked to everyone from Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy to Rey Mysterio and Goldberg to come back and fill out the rosters. And I sit there and go, isn't the whole point of the brand split that you're supposed to create new stars out of the roster you already have, which is allegedly the deepest one they've ever had? What the hell would Goldberg add to this product? The answer, of course, is nothing other than time wasted. The 6 NXT names that I would bring up obviously would be Bayley, Finn Balor, American Alpha if we count them as 2. I'd say Nakamura, but he's definitely going to face Joe at Brooklyn if it's not against Balor. I'd love to bring up Joe and Nakamura, but you might as well leave someone down there to be NXT champion. I think Nakamura should come up. I just don't think they will bring him up for whatever reason. It'll be one of those things like we stuck him down there to carry the brand for a bit. I'm like, but that's not the point of NXT. But anyway, Nia Jax is an option. Asuka's an option, but I think if she was, she would have lost the title. I mean, American Alpha losing the title at the end was pretty much the sign that they're getting the call. It's possible that Alexa Bliss, after breaking up with Blake and Murphy, might be getting the call just to be another competent wrestler on the roster. I'd like it to be Joe, but I think they're gonna do Joe Nakamura at Takeover in Brooklyn. So I would not hold my breath for him being one of them, or for either of them being one of them. I think they'll make it up at some point. There's too much money in Nakamura to leave him in NXT for too long. Austin Aries, on the other hand, is someone who's going to stay down there and be a trainer, and may get a cup of coffee eventually, but he's not going to be rushed up. Bobby Roode will not be coming up. It may be someone we're not even thinking of. Like, it might be the Authors of Pain for all we know. I hope not, but it might be. They did attach them to Paul Ellering. It could be No Way Jose, because his act is over, and you might as well put it on the main roster, like in the Adam Rose mold. But he's a guy who definitely needs to stay down there and become a better wrestler. That just doesn't mean they won't do it, but that's just my opinion. They should leave him down there to get some wrestling skill, but the act is already over. But I mean, the obvious top four are Bayley, Finn, and American Alpha, and American Alpha is definitely coming up. That one I will say 100%. It may be someone that hasn't shown up on TV in NXT like they did with Braun Strowman, and we all saw how well that worked out. I don't know. I would lean. Yeah, there's a chance. Yeah, this is kind of spoilery, but they've teased Nakamura versus Baylor takeover. My only problem is that Baylor definitely needs to be on the main roster, and I don't know. I guess my point is that they're definitely going to do Nakamura Joe, and how long do you delay it if you're not going to do it at Brooklyn? Just because every month that you delay Nakamura coming up from the main roster is just, again, he's not that young, and neither is Joe. They're two marketable talents who should be on the main roster, and do you want to keep delaying them just to have dream matches in NXT? I mean, they could. But it seems like they're guys who should be making money for WWE on the main roster. But we'll see. Nakamura Baylor was teased this week on NXT, and you know that match is going to be like the winner becomes number one contender to the NXT title. So I guess it's just a matter of, do they do it at the next set of tapings, or do they do it at TakeOver Brooklyn? Either way, hey, Nakamura Baylor not going to be bad either. I just, I don't like the idea that if we hold Nakamura Baylor off till SummerSlam, till Brooklyn, we're holding off on Nakamura Joe for at least another 2 months, and you sit there and go, how long are you going to keep these guys in NXT? You got it. Like, the whole point is that the ready stars have to go to the main roster, and then you build new talents in NXT. You're going to have time because you put like a dozen guys out of your class on the main roster. Carmella's one I wouldn't also be shocked by. It just occurred to me. Carmella's, it wouldn't shock to me if they say, well, she's improved enough and we'll put her with Enzo and Cass, and then we'll complete the act. Because I feel like if they were going to make the split with them and Carmella permanent, they would have made her change her act a little, other than continue to do her spiel, which is basically the rider to Enzo's spiel. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see within a month. who's coming up and who's not. And then, hell, that may all be a smoke screen, and they may not call anybody up. I don't think that's the right idea, but they may. They may just sit there and say nobody's up till after SummerSlam. They've changed their minds before. So, it's hard to talk about the brands until we know what's going on. The only other big news that I want to touch on, of course, is that Jerry Lawler having been arrested and suspended for his role in a domestic incident with his fiancée. Obviously, the whole story's not out there, but Lawler seems to make it sound like it wasn't that serious, and it was more of a they got arrested for a cooling off period. But WWE has clearly suspended him because of their zero tolerance to domestic assault. I don't think this will be the end of Jerry Lawler. He won't be on SmackDown this week. He definitely won't be on the pay-per-view tomorrow. But I don't think it'll be the end of him. It'd be nice to have Corey Graves get called up. It'd be nice to have a better announced team. But I don't see this having a long... If it comes out that this wasn't, like... I don't want to say not a big deal, but if it comes out that this wasn't a thing where there was actual violence going on, it was more just one of those things where people were drunk and things were thrown, so the police just arrested everyone to calm everything down, then it probably won't affect Lawler that much. I mean, obviously, if he hit his fiancée, he's not going to work there anymore. But I think we have to let this one play out before we grab all the pitchforks and torches. I really do. And yeah, Mauro Ranallo and Corey Graves could be money. Mauro was already money on his own. But I just don't want to rush to crucify the man just because, or his fiance. I don't want to crucify anyone on this before we have all the facts and before things play out. Obviously, and the thing is, Lawler wasn't going to call the pay-per-view anyway. It'll be JBL and Cole and Saxton. And Mauro will call the pre-show, I hope. And they'll get someone else to fill in on the analyst panel. So, but we'll have to let us see. Obviously, it's not going to play. We'll know within a week or so what the hell that's going to end up being. But we should wait till then before we make any judgments in that matter. Other than that, I think I've covered everything I particularly want to cover for this week. You know what the problem is I'm getting too damn old, and 11:30 at night is actually becoming a problem. But we'll work on that. I'll try to sleep more when I can. The other night I went to sleep at 10:30. Can you believe that? 10:30. Jeez. 3:30 used to be the time to sleep. Don't get old, people. It's not ideal. You know what I mean. Other than that, haven't had a lot of time this week to play video games. I did see all of E3. Unfortunately, I did not get to participate in any of the Video Games to the Max E3 rundowns, mostly because I fell asleep because of I was sick. And 10 o'clock and 9:30 at night is a late at night ass time to have a press conference, which I did watch, but then I just fell asleep. I will say that stuff looks good. As a guy who only owns a PlayStation 4, I'm considering a God of War game for the first time. I was never big into the old ones. Zero Dawn looks fantastic. There's definitely some stuff out there for the good stuff, but at this point I'm waiting for what's coming out for the rest of the year. Fucking, I'm still waiting for Persona 5. That's not till February. I'm still playing WoW. Legion comes out in August. I guess I gotta get that damn ring. Anyway, I'm just rambling because that's what I do when it's late. And again, I'm fairly old. Of course, if you want to hear more of my crazy ramblings, my day job is, of course, at Goliath.com, the men's entertainment website where we cover movies, games, and pro wrestling, which is mostly my domain. This week I did things like I covered the top 10 contenders for the Cruiserweight Classic, which actually took a lot of research because I'm not as tapped into the indies as I'd like to be. And I also did stuff on top Money in the Bank matches and some other various things. Of course, I always do there will be a pay-per-view recap on Monday morning and a Raw recap on Tuesday morning. And of course, there are ways to sign up for our newsletter, but I believe they involve taking one of our quizzes. I can't remember how you do it anymore. But if you want, if you want to know my thoughts on Money in the Bank, is the day after they happen. If you want to know my thoughts on Raw, I do that every week on Tuesdays at Goliath.com. They look like slideshow lists of 10, and they are, but they are Raw recaps. And I do work hard to try and make them good. Of course, this podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher. It gets posted on Forum Mania. It gets posted on our Facebook page, TWNE After Dark, and it gets posted on the Wrestling to the Max podcast network. That is a lot of things. Did I cover them all? Missed anything else? No, I think we're good. I think we're good for another week. I want to thank everyone who's in the live chat, who's talking it up. Some good ideas coming out of there. I hope everybody's at least a little hyped for Money in the Bank. If not, there's lots of stuff going on tomorrow night. You could be watching instead. So see what happens. See if it's any good. We will hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we will see you next week, next Saturday, around midnight. Check our Facebook page for when the show goes live. And of course, I always forget one thing. You'll follow me on Twitter at Dave the Ken. And why wouldn't you? Because I say such clever things on Twitter. You don't even know if you haven't followed me. Then let's finish up. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for the Happy Father's Day from the chat. Thank you very much. And Happy Father's Day to any fathers out there who happen to be listening. It's not as flashy as Mother's Day, but we might get some golf balls or something. I gave my father a monkey card. Don't judge me. So thanks for everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Always be a fan.